The dust devil swirled across the desert floor just as Olivia Sinclair's knees buckled, her body collapsing against the weathered fence post of what appeared to be ranch land, stretching endlessly under the unforgiving New Mexico sun. It was August of 1882, and she had been walking for 2 days straight with nothing but a canteen that had run dry 12 hours ago, and a resolve that was crumbling faster than the dried clay beneath her boots. Her traveling companions had abandoned her outside of Santa Fe when their wagon broke an axle, taking her trunk and most of her money with them before she even realized what was happening. The promised teaching position in Roswell seemed like a fever dream now, something she had foolishly believed would save her from the poverty that had claimed her family's farm back in Ohio. Through blurred vision, she saw a figure on horseback approaching, the sound of hooves against hard earth mixing with the pounding in her temples. She tried to stand straighter, to maintain some dignity, but her body refused to cooperate. The rider drew closer, and she could make out a tall man in his late 20s, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat, a blue work shirt darkened with sweat at the collar. Yates Quinn pulled his horse to a stop, dismounting in one fluid motion that spoke of years in the saddle. He took in the sight before him with sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. A young woman, maybe 22 or 23, her dark blonde hair falling loose from what had once been a proper bun, her traveling dress torn at the hem and covered in dust, her lips cracked from dehydration. But it was her eyes that caught him, green as spring grass, and filled with a desperate pride that refused to beg even as her body swayed. "Miss, you need help," he said, his voice a low rumble that held genuine concern rather than judgment. "I am quite well, thank you," Olivia managed to say, the lie so obvious that it would have been laughable under different circumstances. Then her knees gave out entirely. Yates caught her before she hit the ground, his strong arms supporting her weight as though she weighed nothing at all. "Sure you are. My ranch house is just over that rise. Can you ride, or should I carry you?" Olivia wanted to protest, wanted to maintain the independence that had been drilled into her since childhood, but survival instinct won out over pride. "I can ride," she whispered, though she was not entirely certain it was true. He lifted her onto his horse with surprising gentleness, then swung up behind her, one arm secure around her waist to keep her steady. The warmth of another human being after 2 days alone was almost overwhelming, and Olivia found herself leaning back against his chest, too exhausted to care about propriety. The ride to the ranch house took less than 10 minutes, but Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the solid presence of the man behind her. When they arrived, she had a vague impression of a well-maintained adobe structure with a wide porch, corrals holding several horses, and outbuildings that suggested this was a working ranch of some size. Yates carried her inside despite her weak protests, laying her on a leather sofa in a sitting room that was surprisingly comfortable. The furnishings were simple but well made, everything clean and orderly in a way that suggested he took pride in his home. He disappeared for a moment and returned with a cup of water. "Slow sips," he instructed, holding the cup to her lips. "Too much too fast will make you sick." Olivia obeyed, the cool water feeling like salvation as it wet her parched throat. After a few sips, he pulled the cup away. "More in a minute. Let that settle first." "Thank you," she managed, her voice stronger now. "I am sorry to impose. If you could just spare some water and perhaps directions to Roswell, I will be on my way." Yates studied her for a long moment, then shook his head. "Roswell is still 20 miles from here, and you are in no condition to travel. When did you last eat?" Olivia tried to remember. "Yesterday morning I had a biscuit." "Yesterday morning," he repeated, his jaw tightening. "You stay here and rest. I am going to fix you something to eat, and then we will talk about what happened and where you need to go." "I cannot just stay here," Olivia protested. "It would not be proper, and I have already imposed too much on your kindness." "Miss, I am not in the habit of sending women back out into the desert to die. You stay as long as you need until you are strong enough to travel and we figure out how to get you safely to wherever you are headed. That is the end of it." There was a finality in his tone that brooked no argument, but it was not unkind. Olivia found herself nodding, too tired to fight. Yates gave her another few sips of water, then went to the kitchen. She could hear him moving around, the clink of dishes and the sound of something being sliced. The room around her swam in and out of focus, and she must have dozed because the next thing she knew, he was gently shaking her shoulder. "You need to eat something," he said, helping her sit up. He had prepared a plate with bread, cheese, and some sliced apples, along with a bowl of broth that smelled like heaven. "Start with the broth. Your stomach needs something gentle." Olivia accepted the bowl with trembling hands, but they shook so badly that broth sloshed over the side. Without a word, Yates sat beside her and took the bowl back. "Let me help." It was humiliating to be fed like a child, but Olivia was too hungry and too tired to refuse. The broth was rich and salty, made from beef stock, and each spoonful seemed to restore a bit of her strength. When the bowl was empty, Yates handed her a small piece of bread. "Eat this slowly. If it stays down, you can have more." As Olivia nibbled the bread, Yates settled into a chair across from her. "My name is Yates Quinn. I run cattle on this land, about 3,000 acres stretching north and east. You are about 5 miles outside of the main road to Roswell." "Olivia Sinclair," she replied, swallowing a bite of bread. "I am traveling from Ohio. I was hired to be a schoolteacher in Roswell, but the people I was traveling with abandoned me when their wagon broke down. They took my belongings and most of my money." Yates's expression darkened. "What did these people look like? Did you get names?" Olivia described the couple, a man and woman who had seemed respectable when they offered her a place in their wagon in Santa Fe. Yates's mouth formed a grim line. "That sounds like the Harpers. They have pulled that trick before, preying on travelers. The law knows about them, but they move around too much to catch. I am sorry that happened to you." "It was my own fault for trusting strangers," Olivia said bitterly. "I should have been more careful." "You should not have to be," Yates countered. "Decent people do not steal from those who trust them. That is on them, not on you." His words, spoken with such conviction, brought unexpected tears to Olivia's eyes. The kindness of this stranger after the cruelty she had experienced was almost too much to bear. She blinked rapidly, trying to compose herself, but a sob escaped anyway. Yates moved to sit beside her again, his large hand gently patting her shoulder in an awkward attempt at comfort. "You are safe now. That is what matters. You eat, you rest, and we will sort out the rest." Over the next hour, Olivia managed to eat more of the food Yates had prepared, and with each bite, she felt more human. He showed her to a bedroom that he said had belonged to his mother before she passed, 2 years earlier. It was a comfortable room with a real bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the desert landscape. "There is water in the pitcher for washing," Yates said from the doorway. "I will be up at dawn to tend the horses and cattle, but you sleep as long as you need. We will talk more when you are rested." "Mr. Quinn," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion, "I cannot repay you for this kindness, but I want you to know I am truly grateful." "No repayment needed," he replied simply. "Just get some rest." After he left, Olivia used the water to wash the worst of the dust and grime from her face and hands. She wanted a proper bath, but she was too exhausted. She stripped down to her chemise and collapsed onto the bed, asleep before her head fully settled on the pillow. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window in golden bars, and it took her a moment to remember where she was. Her body ached from the ordeal of the past days, but the gnawing hunger was gone, replaced by a feeling of relative well-being. She rose and looked out the window, seeing Yates in one of the corrals working with a young horse. Even from this distance, she could see the patience in his movements as he led the animal in circles, speaking to it in low tones she could not make out. She realized with some embarrassment that she had nothing to wear but the filthy traveling dress from yesterday. After washing as best she could with the remaining water in the pitcher, she put it back on, trying to brush out the worst of the dust. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found the house empty but smelled coffee brewing on the stove. Olivia made her way to the kitchen, a spacious room with a large table and windows that let in plenty of light. There was a pot of coffee on the stove and a covered plate on the table with a note written in a neat, precise hand. "Help yourself to breakfast. Back by mid-morning." Under the cloth was more bread, butter, and some eggs that had been kept warm. Olivia ate slowly, savoring each bite, and poured herself a cup of coffee. It was strong and hot, exactly what she needed. As she sat at the table, she took in more details of the house. Everything was well maintained but sparse, the home of a man who lived alone and did not see the need for unnecessary decoration. Yet there were small touches that spoke of care. Curtains in the windows, a vase on the mantel that held dried wildflowers, books on a shelf in the sitting room. After breakfast, Olivia washed her dishes and explored the house more thoroughly. Besides the bedroom she had slept in and the one that was clearly Yates's, there was a third smaller room that appeared to be used for storage. The sitting room held the leather sofa she had first been laid on, 2 comfortable chairs, and a stone fireplace. Everything was clean, everything in its place. She was examining the books on the shelf when she heard boots on the porch. Yates entered, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. His hair was dark brown and slightly too long, curling at his collar. "You are looking better," he observed. "Did you find the breakfast?" "Yes, thank you. It was very kind of you to prepare it." "It was nothing," he said, moving to pour himself coffee. "How are you feeling?" "Much better. Sore, but better." Olivia clasped her hands together. "Mr. Quinn, I need to continue to Roswell as soon as possible. The teaching position is expecting me and I am already late." Yates leaned against the kitchen counter, regarding her thoughtfully. "How late?" "I was supposed to arrive 3 days ago. They may have already given the position to someone else." "Possibly," he agreed. "But if you show up explaining what happened, they might still honor their commitment." "Do you have the letter offering you the position?" Olivia's heart sank. "It was in my trunk. The Harpers took everything." "Then we will go into Roswell tomorrow and you can explain the situation in person. Today, you need to rest more. 2 days in the desert has taken a toll, even if you are feeling better now." "I do not want to impose any longer," Olivia said, though she knew she had little choice. "It is not an imposition," Yates replied firmly. "I have plenty of room and it is no trouble. Besides, I need to go into town anyway for supplies. We will make a day of it tomorrow." Olivia wanted to argue, but she recognized the futility. More than that, she recognized the genuine kindness in his offer. "Thank you. I truly do not know what I would have done if you had not found me." "You would have found a way," Yates said, his eyes meeting hers with a steady confidence. "You strike me as someone who does not give up easily." The comment pleased her more than it should have. They spent the rest of the morning in comfortable conversation. Yates told her about his ranch, how he had built it up over the past 6 years after his father died and left him the land. He ran cattle primarily, with a small herd of horses he was breeding for sale. He employed 2 ranch hands who lived in the bunkhouse near the barn, but they were currently driving a herd to market and would not return for another week. Olivia told him about her life in Ohio, how her father had been a teacher before losing everything when the bank foreclosed on their farm. He had died shortly after from pneumonia, and her mother had followed 6 months later from what Olivia believed was a broken heart. Teaching was the only respectable profession available to her as a single woman with education but no money, and the position in Roswell had seemed like a fresh start. "I am sorry about your parents," Yates said quietly. "Losing both of them so close together must have been hard." "It was," Olivia admitted, "but dwelling on it does not change anything. I have to move forward." "That is a practical way to look at it," Yates said. "But it is also all right to grieve." His words, spoken with such simple understanding, touched something deep inside her. She found herself blinking back tears again and quickly changed the subject. "What about you? Do you have any family?" "Not anymore. My mother passed 2 years ago, like I mentioned. My father died when I was 22. I have a sister, but she married and moved to California. We write occasionally, but I have not seen her in 3 years. So you run this ranch all alone, with help from the hands when they are here?" "Yes. It keeps me busy, which is good. Idle hands and all that." As the day progressed, Olivia found herself relaxing in Yates's company. He was easy to talk to, with a quiet sense of humor that emerged once he was more comfortable. He showed her around the ranch that afternoon, pointing out the various buildings and introducing her to the horses in the corral. One, a gray mare with intelligent eyes, nuzzled Olivia's hand hopefully. "That is Silver," Yates said. "She is hoping you have an apple or carrot." "I am sorry to disappoint you," Olivia told the mare, stroking her soft nose. "She will survive. She is spoiled enough as it is." Yates produced an apple from his pocket and fed it to Silver himself, his large hand flat so she could take it without catching his fingers. The gesture was so gentle, so at odds with his rough exterior, that Olivia found herself watching him with new interest. He was handsome in a rugged way, she realized. Not the polished handsomeness of city men, but something more elemental. There was strength in the line of his jaw, competence in the way he moved, and kindness in his eyes when he looked at the animals in his care. She caught herself staring and quickly looked away, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. That evening, Yates prepared dinner, refusing her offers to help. "You are still recovering," he insisted. "You can help once you are back to full strength, but for now you rest." The meal was simple but good: steak, potatoes, and beans. They ate at the kitchen table, the conversation flowing easily. Olivia learned that Yates had taught himself to cook after his mother became too ill to manage the household, and he had kept up the skill by necessity. "A man living alone needs to feed himself," he said with a shrug. "I am not fancy, but I can make the basics." "It is delicious," Olivia said honestly. "Better than anything I could have managed on my own." After dinner, they sat on the porch as the sun set, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and purple. The temperature was finally dropping from the brutal heat of the day, and a slight breeze made the evening pleasant. Yates pointed out landmarks in the distance: the mountains to the east, the direction of Roswell to the south, the boundaries of his property. "It is beautiful," Olivia said, watching the colors deepen. "So different from Ohio. Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. I miss trees and green grass and rain that does not evaporate before it hits the ground. But there is something about this landscape too. It is harsh but honest. It does not pretend to be something it is not." Yates looked at her with surprise. "That is exactly it. I have never been able to put it into words like that, but yes, the desert does not lie to you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Olivia felt a peace she had not experienced in months, maybe longer. Despite the uncertainty of her situation, despite everything she had lost, in this moment she felt safe. "I should turn in," she finally said. "If we are going to Roswell tomorrow, I want to be well rested." "Good idea. We will leave around 8 if that suits you. It is a few hours' ride by wagon." That night, Olivia lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the desert. The distant howl of a coyote, the whisper of wind through brush, the settling of the house. She thought about Yates, about his unexpected kindness, about the way her heart had skipped when he smiled at something she said. It was foolish, she told herself. She had known him less than 2 days, and she would likely be moving to Roswell soon, out of his life as quickly as she had entered it. But as she drifted off to sleep, it was his face she saw, his voice she heard in her dreams. Morning came with roosters crowing somewhere in the distance. Olivia rose and dressed in her same dusty traveling dress, wishing desperately for something clean to wear. She braided her hair as neatly as she could and made her way to the kitchen, where Yates was already preparing breakfast. "Good morning," he said, looking up from the eggs he was scrambling. "I hope you slept well." "Very well, thank you. Can I help with anything?" "You can set the table if you like. Plates are in that cabinet." They worked together in an easy rhythm, and soon breakfast was ready. Over the meal, Yates outlined the plan for the day. "We will take the wagon into Roswell. First stop will be the school to see about your position. After that, we need to get you some supplies. Do you have any money at all?" Olivia felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "A few dollars. It was all I had in my pocket when the Harpers left me." "That is not much, but we will make it work. You will need at least one change of clothes and some basic necessities. Mr. Quinn, you have already done so much. I cannot ask you to spend money on me." "You are not asking. I am offering. Besides, consider it a loan if that makes you feel better. You can pay me back once you are settled in your teaching position." Olivia wanted to argue, but pride had to bow to practicality. "A loan, then, and I will repay every cent." "I have no doubt you will." An hour later, they were on the road to Roswell, Olivia seated beside Yates on the wagon bench. He had hitched up 2 sturdy horses, and they made good time on the road that connected his ranch to the main route into town. As they traveled, Yates pointed out various landmarks and told her about the area. Roswell was a small but growing town, established just a few years earlier. It was still rough around the edges, he explained, but it was attracting settlers and businesses. The need for a school teacher was real, as families with children were moving to the area. "The current teacher is a man named Horace Green, but he is getting on in years and wants to retire," Yates said. "Last I heard, they were looking for someone to take over the younger students while he focused on the older ones." "I hope they have not filled the position already," Olivia said anxiously. "We will find out soon enough." Roswell appeared on the horizon as a collection of buildings shimmering in the heat. As they drew closer, Olivia could make out a main street lined with businesses. A general store, a saloon, a hotel, a blacksmith, and various other establishments. People moved along the wooden sidewalks, and horses were tied to hitching posts up and down the street. Yates guided the wagon to a stop in front of a white-painted building with a bell tower. "This is the school. Ready?" Olivia took a deep breath and nodded. Yates helped her down from the wagon, his hand warm and steady on her elbow. Together, they walked up the steps and into the building. Inside, the school was a single large room with rows of desks and a blackboard at the front. A man who must have been Horace Green was organizing books on a shelf. He turned at the sound of their footsteps, revealing a weathered face with kind blue eyes and white hair. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Mr. Green, my name is Olivia Sinclair. I was hired to be the new teacher here, but I am afraid I am several days late due to circumstances beyond my control." Recognition flashed in the old man's eyes. "Miss Sinclair, we had begun to wonder what happened to you. When you did not arrive as expected, we thought perhaps you had changed your mind." "No, sir. I was robbed by the people I was traveling with. They took all my belongings and left me stranded. If Mr. Quinn here had not found me, I do not know what would have happened." Horace looked at Yates with newfound respect. "Yates Quinn, I have seen you in town but do not think we have formally met. Thank you for helping Miss Sinclair." "It was the right thing to do," Yates said simply. Horace turned back to Olivia. "I am very sorry to hear about your troubles, Miss Sinclair. However, I must be honest with you. When you did not arrive and we received no word, the town council decided to hire someone else. A young man from Texas who arrived just yesterday." Olivia felt her stomach drop. "I see. I understand, of course. The delay was not your fault." "I feel terrible about this," Horace said, genuine regret in his voice. "If there is anything I can do to help, please let me know." Olivia thanked him, though her mind was reeling. She and Yates walked back to the wagon in silence. Once they were seated, Yates looked at her with concern. "I am sorry. I know that was not the news you hoped for." "It is not your fault," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I should have anticipated this possibility. I just have to figure out what to do next." "You could stay at the ranch," Yates said quickly. "I mean, just until you figure things out. I could use help around the house and you need a place to stay. It would be a fair trade." Olivia looked at him, searching his face for any sign of impropriety, but saw only honest concern. "That would not be proper, Mr. Quinn. A single woman living at her ranch with a single man. People would talk." "People always talk," Yates said, his jaw setting in that stubborn line she was beginning to recognize. "But I am not suggesting anything improper. You would have your own room, your own space, and it would just be temporary until something else comes along." "What would I do?" "I cannot just live there for free. Help with the cooking and cleaning. Lord knows I could use the help, and my hands are useless at anything domestic. You would be earning your keep, nothing to be ashamed of in that." Olivia considered. It was not what she had planned, not even close. But her options were limited. She had a few dollars to her name, no belongings, and no job. The alternative was to try to find work in Roswell, but opportunities for women were limited, and most would expect references or experience she did not have. "Just for a short while," she finally said. "Until I can find a proper position or save enough money to travel elsewhere." "Just for a short while," Yates agreed, but there was something in his eyes, a warmth that made Olivia's heart beat faster. They went to the general store next, where Yates helped her pick out 2 simple dresses, undergarments, a nightgown, and other necessities. The storekeeper, a plump woman named Agnes, gave them curious looks but was friendly enough. When Olivia tried to pay with her few dollars, Yates waved her money away. "Keep what you have for emergencies. This is part of our arrangement. You cannot work for me in rags." "That is too much," Olivia protested. "It is an investment," Yates countered. "You will earn it back in no time with your help around the ranch." Reluctantly, Olivia agreed. They made a few more stops, picking up supplies Yates needed for the ranch before heading back. The ride home was quieter, Olivia lost in thought about this unexpected turn her life had taken. A week ago, she had been traveling west with hope and plans. Now those plans were ashes, but somehow she did not feel as devastated as she should. Sitting beside Yates as the wagon rolled across the desert, she felt something else entirely, something she was not ready to name. The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Olivia took over the household duties, cooking meals, cleaning, doing laundry in the big basin behind the house. It was hard work, but satisfying in a way her life in Ohio had not been. Yates was an easy person to cook for, appreciative of everything she made and not picky about what appeared on his plate. In return, he made sure she had everything she needed and never made her feel like a burden. They spent their evenings on the porch, talking about everything and nothing. Yates told her stories about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before he could walk, about the time he nearly lost a finger to a rattlesnake and his mother had nursed him back to health. Olivia shared memories of her childhood in Ohio, of her father teaching her to read, of helping her mother in the garden. A week passed, then two. Yates's ranch hands returned from the cattle drive. Two weathered cowboys named Pete and Tom who were respectful to Olivia and seemed unsurprised by her presence. They took their meals in the bunkhouse, giving Yates and Olivia privacy in the main house. It was during the third week that Olivia realized her feelings for Yates had grown beyond gratitude. She found herself watching for him to come in from his work, listening for the sound of his boots on the porch. When he smiled at something she said, her whole day seemed brighter. When their hands accidentally brushed reaching for the same plate at dinner, electricity shot through her. She tried to tell herself it was just because he had been kind to her, because she owed him so much. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. She was falling in love with Yates Quinn, and the knowledge terrified her. For his part, Yates seemed to be wrestling with his own feelings. Olivia caught him watching her sometimes when he thought she was not looking, his eyes holding an intensity that made her breath catch. But he was always proper, always careful not to cross any lines. One evening in late September, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Yates cleared his throat. "Olivia, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you still planning to leave, to find a teaching position somewhere else?" Olivia had been asking herself the same question. In truth, she had not made any effort to look for other positions. She was happy here, happier than she had been in a long time, but she did not know how to say that without revealing too much. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I suppose I should be looking, but I have not been. Is that a problem? Do you need me to leave?" "No," Yates said quickly. "No, that is not what I meant at all. I just wanted to know if you were happy here or if you felt trapped." "I am happy here," Olivia said softly. "Happier than I expected to be." Yates turned to look at her, his eyes searching her face. "I am glad, because I am happy with you here too, more than happy if I am being honest." Olivia's heart began to race. "Yates, what are you saying?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of nervousness she had never seen from him before. "I am saying that I have feelings for you, Olivia. I know I should not. I know this is not what you signed up for, but I cannot help it. You have become important to me. You have feelings for me." Olivia repeated, hardly daring to believe it. "Yes. I think I started falling for you that first day when you tried to tell me you were fine while you were literally collapsing. You are strong and smart and kind, and I look forward to seeing you every morning and dread saying good night every evening. I know I am just a rancher and you are educated and could do better, but I had to tell you. I could not keep it inside anymore." Olivia felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yates, I have feelings for you too. I have been trying not to, trying to tell myself it was just gratitude, but it is not. It is so much more than that." The relief on Yates's face was palpable. He reached out and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "I did not dare hope you might feel the same way." "I do," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I really do." Yates stood, drawing her up with him. For a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, looking into each other's eyes. Then slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, tentative and sweet, his lips soft against hers. Olivia's eyes fluttered closed and she leaned into him, her free hand coming up to rest against his chest. She could feel his heart pounding beneath her palm, beating as fast as her own. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Yates rested his forehead against hers, his hands cupping her face. "I have wanted to do that for weeks." "I have wanted you to," Olivia admitted. They kissed again, longer this time with more confidence. When they finally returned to sitting on the porch, Yates kept her hand in his, unwilling to break the connection. "So what happens now?" Olivia asked. "I would like to court you properly," Yates said. "With your permission, of course. I know the circumstances are unusual with you living here, but I want to do this right." "I would like that very much." Over the following weeks, their relationship blossomed. Yates courted her with a sweetness that made her heart ache. He picked wildflowers for her on his rides around the ranch, leaving them in a cup by her bedside. He taught her to ride, his hands patient and encouraging as he helped her learn to control the mare. They took long walks in the evening, talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. For her part, Olivia put extra care into her cooking, learning his favorite dishes and perfecting them. She mended his clothes with tiny, careful stitches. She laughed at his jokes and listened to his worries about the ranch. It was not all smooth sailing. They had their first argument in October when Olivia wanted to ride out to check on a sick calf and Yates forbade it, saying it was too dangerous. She accused him of being overprotective, and he accused her of being reckless. They did not speak for half a day before Yates apologized for being controlling, and Olivia apologized for not considering his concern. "I am just not used to having someone to worry about," Yates admitted. "The thought of you getting hurt terrifies me." "And I am not used to having someone care enough to worry," Olivia replied. "We will have to learn to navigate this together." Their first real test came in November when a stranger showed up at the ranch asking for work. He was a rough-looking man in his 40s, and something about him made Olivia uneasy. Yates hired him on a trial basis, needing extra help with the upcoming winter preparations. The man, who gave his name as Frank, made Olivia uncomfortable from the start. He looked at her in a way that made her skin crawl, and he made comments that skirted the edge of impropriety. She mentioned it to Yates, who immediately became protective. "Has he touched you or threatened you in any way?" Yates asked, his voice hard. "No, nothing like that. It is just a feeling." "That is enough for me. I will let him go tomorrow." But before Yates could fire Frank, the situation came to a head. Olivia was hanging laundry when Frank approached her, standing too close. "A pretty woman like you should not be wasting her time on a simple rancher," he said, his breath reeking of whiskey. "You could do better." "Please step back," Olivia said firmly, trying to move away, but he grabbed her arm. "I am talking to you. You could show a little appreciation." "Let go of me," Olivia demanded, trying to pull free. Before Frank could respond, he was yanked backward. Yates had appeared seemingly from nowhere, and his fist connected with Frank's jaw in a solid punch that sent the man sprawling. "You are fired," Yates said, his voice dangerously calm. "Get your things and get off my property. If I ever see you near Miss Sinclair again, it will be worse than a punch." Frank scrambled to his feet, muttering curses, but he was smart enough not to argue with the fury in Yates's eyes. Within an hour, he was gone. Yates turned to Olivia, his anger immediately replaced by concern. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" "I am fine," Olivia said, though she was shaking. "Thank you for coming when you did." Yates pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I am so sorry. I should never have hired him. I should have trusted your instincts from the beginning." "You could not have known," Olivia said, leaning into his embrace. "That does not matter. You are what matters. Keeping you safe is what matters. The incident, while frightening, brought them closer together. Olivia felt cherished and protected, and Yates became even more attentive. As November gave way to December, Yates began hinting at a future together, talking about plans for the ranch that included her. On Christmas Eve, as they sat by the fireplace with snow falling gently outside, Yates turned to Olivia with a serious expression. "I have something I want to ask you," he said, taking her hand. Olivia's heart began to race. "Yes." Yates slid off the couch and onto one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold band with a small diamond. "Olivia Sinclair, I know we have not known each other long by some people's standards, but I know my heart. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. You have made this house a home, made my life complete in ways I did not know it was lacking. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you." Yates slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, sweeping her into his arms and kissing her deeply. When they finally pulled apart, both were laughing and crying at once. "I love you," Olivia said. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Yates replied. "More than words can say." They were married in Roswell in January of 1883, with half the town in attendance. Agnes from the general store cried through the whole ceremony, and even old Horace Green showed up to wish them well. Pete and Tom stood as witnesses, grinning from ear to ear. Olivia wore a simple white dress that Agnes had helped her sew, and Yates wore his best suit, looking more handsome than she had ever seen him. As they exchanged vows in front of the circuit preacher, Olivia thought about how lost and desperate she had been just 6 months earlier, and how far she had come. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife, Yates kissed her with a tenderness that made her heart swell. They were starting a new chapter together. Married life agreed with them both. Yates was an attentive husband, never taking Olivia for granted and always making sure she knew she was loved. Olivia threw herself into making their home comfortable, into building a life with this man who had saved her in more ways than one. Spring brought new beginnings. Olivia discovered she was pregnant in April, and Yates was overjoyed. He became even more protective, if that was possible, worrying over her constantly until she had to laugh and remind him that women had been having babies since the beginning of time. "Not my wife," he would say. "Not carrying my child." Their son was born in December of 1883, a healthy baby boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. They named him William, after Olivia's father. Yates was a natural father, patient and loving, and Olivia fell in love with him all over again watching him with their son. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Olivia kept the books and helped with business decisions, her education proving invaluable. Yates expanded the herd and improved the breeding program for the horses. They saved money and bought additional land, growing the ranch into one of the most successful in the area. 2 years after William, they had a daughter named Catherine, who had her mother's blonde hair and her father's brown eyes. Then came another son, James, and finally another daughter, Eleanor. The house that had been so quiet and sparse when Olivia first arrived was now filled with laughter and the sounds of children playing. As the years passed, Olivia sometimes thought about that desperate woman who had collapsed at a fence post, lost and hungry and alone. She barely recognized herself in that memory. She had become strong in ways she never anticipated, confident in her place in the world. The ranch was not just Yates's anymore. It was theirs, built together through hard work and love. Yates, for his part, never let a day go by without making sure Olivia knew she was loved. He would catch her hand as she walked by, pull her into his arms for a kiss, Tell her she was beautiful even after a long day of work. He credited her with making him a better man, but Olivia knew the truth. He had always been this man, kind and good and true. She had just been lucky enough to find him in the summer of 1893, 10 years after their marriage. Olivia stood on the porch watching Yates teach William how to rope a calf. Catherine was helping her younger siblings build a fort out of old crates, their laughter floating on the warm breeze. The ranch stretched out around them, thriving and beautiful. Yates looked up and caught her watching, and the smile he gave her was the same one that had made her heart skip all those years ago. He said something to William, then walked over to the porch, taking the steps 2 at a time. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Just remembering," Olivia said, leaning back against him. "Remembering how lost I was when I found this place." "When I found you, you mean?" Yates corrected gently. "When we found each other," Olivia amended. "I was thinking how different my life might have been if you had not been riding that fence line that day." "I thank God every day that I was," Yates said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia Quinn." "And you are the best thing that ever happened to me," Olivia replied, turning in his arms to face him. "I love you." "I love you too," Yates said, and kissed her as he had 1,000 times before, as he would 1,000 times more. From the yard, William called out, "Are you two being mushy again?" Catherine giggled. "Daddy is always mushy with Mama." Yates and Olivia broke apart laughing. "That is right," Yates called back. "And do not you forget it, a husband should always be mushy with his wife." As Yates went back to teaching William and Olivia returned to watching her family, she felt a contentment so deep it was almost overwhelming. This was not the life she had planned all those years ago when she left Ohio. It was better, so much better. The years continued to pass in a blur of seasons. William grew into a strong young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Catherine showed an aptitude for the books and business side, often sitting with her mother as Olivia went over the accounts. James was the dreamer, always with his head in a book, and Alina was the wild one, fearless and adventurous. Yates and Olivia watched them grow with pride and a touch of bittersweetness. The house that had been so full of noise and activity for so long began to quiet as the children grew older and more independent. But it was a comfortable quiet, the quiet of a long marriage and deep understanding. When William announced at 21 that he wanted to expand the ranch operations into New Mexico territory further north, Yates and Olivia gave him their blessing and the resources to do it. Catherine married a banker's son from Roswell and moved to town, though she still helped her parents with the books. James went east to university to study literature, something that would have been impossible without the success of the ranch. Alina, true to form, insisted on learning everything the boys had learned about ranching, refusing to be limited by her gender. Through it all, Yates and Olivia remained the center, the foundation upon which everything else was built. They still took evening walks when weather permitted. They still sat on the porch and watched the sunset. And Yates still looked at Olivia with the same love and wonder he had shown from the very beginning. In the fall of 1903, 20 years after their wedding, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. William brought his wife and their 3 children. Catherine came with her husband and their 2 daughters. James came home from his teaching position at a university in Boston. Alina was there, of course, still helping run the ranch and showing no signs of wanting to leave. As Olivia looked around the table at dinner, seeing 3 generations gathered together, she felt tears prick her eyes. Yates, sitting beside her, took her hand and squeezed it gently. He knew what she was feeling without words. After dinner, As the younger generation played games in the yard and the grandchildren ran wild, Yates led Olivia out to the porch. The sun was setting in its usual spectacular display, painting the sky in colors that still took her breath away even after all these years. "You ever regret it?" Yates asked suddenly. Olivia looked at him in surprise. "Regret what? This life? You could have been a teacher like you planned, could have had a different kind of life. Do you ever wonder what might have been?" Olivia considered the question seriously, knowing he deserved an honest answer. "No," she finally said. "I do not regret a single moment. This life, this family, it is everything I never knew I wanted. If someone had told me when I was 22 and headed to that teaching position that I would end up here instead, I probably would have been terrified. But it has been the greatest adventure of my life." Yates smiled, that slow, warm smile that still made her heart race. "You know what the funny thing is? I did not know I was lonely until you arrived. I thought I was content with my life, with the ranch and my work. But you showed me what I was missing. You showed me what it means to truly share your life with someone." "We showed each other," Olivia said, resting her head on his shoulder. "That is what love does. It shows us who we are and who we can be." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last of the light fade from the sky. From inside the house came the sound of laughter, the sounds of their family enjoying each other. It was the sound of a life well lived, of love multiplied across generations. "What do you think our grandchildren will remember about us?" Yates asked. "I hope they remember that we loved each other," Olivia said. "That no matter what challenges we faced them together. That love does not have to be complicated or dramatic. Sometimes it is just showing up every day and choosing each other." "That is a good legacy," Yates said, pressing a kiss to her hair. As the years continued to advance, Yates and Olivia grew older together gracefully. Yates's hair turned silver, and lines deepened around his eyes from years of squinting in the sun. Olivia's blonde hair also silvered, and her hands showed the work of decades of ranch life. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young people who had fallen in love on a New Mexico ranch all those years ago. They handed more and more of the ranch operations over to William and Alina, content to step back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. They traveled a bit, visiting Catherine in Roswell and James in Boston. They spent time with their grandchildren, telling stories and passing down the history of the family. One spring evening when Olivia was 68 and Yates was 72, they sat on the porch as they had so many times before. Yates's health had been failing slightly, nothing serious but enough to remind them both that they would not live forever. He reached over and took Olivia's hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I need you to know something," he said seriously. "What is it?" Olivia asked, concerned by his tone. "Finding you that day, it was not chance. I do not care what anyone says about coincidence or luck. It was meant to be. We were meant to find each other." Olivia felt tears well up. Even after all these years, he could still move her to tears with his words. "I believe that too. I have always believed that. And I need you to know that every single day with you has been a gift. Even the hard days, even when we argued or struggled, it was still a gift because I got to face it with you. You are my everything, Olivia. You always have been. And you are mine," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life that day, Yates. Not just physically, but in every way that matters. You gave me a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me love. I could not have asked for a better life than the one we built together." Yates pulled her close, and they sat wrapped in each other's arms as the stars came out one by one. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of the ranch settling in for the night, horses nickering to each other, the wind rustling through the brush, the peaceful sounds of home. The ranch that Yates had built and Olivia had helped expand continued to thrive, a testament to their hard work and dedication. William ran it with the same care and attention his father had shown, and Alina worked beside him, proving that a woman could do anything a man could when given the opportunity. The grandchildren grew, and some showed interest in continuing the legacy while others forged their own paths, but all of them carried the lessons their grandparents had taught them about love, hard work, and integrity. Olivia lived to see her great-grandchildren born, holding them in her arms and marveling at how far the family had come from that desperate day when she had collapsed at a fence post. Yates, despite his health concerns, remained active and engaged until the very end, still riding out to check the cattle even in his 70s, still making Olivia laugh with his dry sense of humor. When Yates finally passed in his sleep at the age of 78, Olivia grieved deeply, but without regret. They had been given more than 50 years together, 50 years of love and partnership, and building something meaningful. She lived 3 more years after him, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, writing down the story of how she and Yates had met so that future generations would know. On a warm evening in the spring, Olivia passed peacefully in her sleep in the same bedroom where she had first rested all those decades ago. Her children buried her next to Yates on a hill overlooking the ranch, where they could watch over everything they had built together. The ranch continued on, generation after generation, but the love story of Yates and Olivia Quinn became part of the family legend. They told it at gatherings, wrote it in family histories, shared it as an example of what true love looked like. It was not a story of grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though it had started with one. It was a story of 2 people who found each other when they needed it most and chose every day to build a life together. The fence post where Yates had first found Olivia still stood decades later, weathered but sturdy, a silent witness to the beginning of a great love story. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light hit just right, you could almost see 2 figures on the porch of the ranch house, sitting close together and watching the sunset, their love as enduring as the land itself.